The dust has settled, the initial reactions are in for the new commander coming to Rise of Kingdoms, William Wallace. Yes, another William. I'm sure that's not going to get confusing whatsoever. But as with all new commander releases, we're going to go over a few key things on this channel. One, we're going to go over the skill review, pretty basic, all 4 skills plus the expertise skill, just to get a gauge of what this commander brings to the table. Next, we're going to go over commander skill comparisons with other recent releases in Rise of Kingdoms, as well as what this commander might be replacing in the meta. And does this commander really stand on its own, or is it kind of carried by some of the commanders that he is being paired with? Next up, we're going to go into the best infantry march setups for 1 march, 2 marches, and 3 marches in your murder ball. And lastly, we're going to go over the rationale of whether or not you should actually invest in this commander. So let's get started. All right, and here we are. Let's hop into it. So the first skill, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Just bear with me here. I'm just going to read off the descriptions. We have rage requirement of 1000, so pretty standard. Deals smite damage, so very strong. Not a lot of mitigation in the game currently for smite damage to a targeted troop, damage factor 2400. Then deals extra smite damage to up to 3 enemy troops currently attacking this commander's troop. So a little bit of anti-swarm, but honestly, this will not be happening all that much. Generally, when you're getting targeted in the open field, you're running away at that point. So really, this commander's active skill is quite weak. It will most oftentimes just do 2400 damage factor to a single target with no debuffs. Okay, I'm not super impressed so far. So what do we have on the next skill? We have Scott's Wahe, sure. Okay, I'm going to stick to what I said and say I will not try to pronounce any of these skills, but it is while on the map, so this is not going to work in a garrison. The infantry units in their troop gain 10% health, 30% attack, and 20% march speed. This is fantastic. This is good. You're looking at 40% of stats, which is, I would say, is like Gen 1, Gen 2 kind of stat range, but then you're also adding on that 20% march speed, and Lord knows that infantry need march speed, so this will be a very, very, very nice second skill. Really impressed by that one. Next up, Lion of the North. This commander's troop take 10% less normal damage. Okay, so a little bit of mitigation against the other normal damage out there. And then whenever this commander's troop deals smite damage with a damage factor greater than 1000, there's an 80% chance that the damage will be increased by 40%, cooldown of 10 seconds. So I'm seeing a lot of things online telling me that this skill is absolutely broken. And I will say that this skill is not really super broken. It's good, it's strong, but it's not super broken. Now, it does say damage factor greater than 1000. That means that it'll only proc from things like Liu Che's active skill, Gorgo's active skill, or William, or I guess WW. I'm just going to call him WW for short because there's another William in the game, but WW's active skill. Now, there's an 80% chance that it'll trigger, so that means that 1 in every 5 turns it won't trigger, but most likely it will trigger on your secondary commander's active skill. You're not really going to have to worry about this not proccing very often, but the cooldown is 10 seconds. So what this will mean is your average skill cycle in Rise of Kingdoms nowadays is about 8 turns long. So this will only occur every other skill cycle. So really, you're kind of looking at a 20% increase to your average damage done by your secondary or primary commander active skill. It's not... This isn't blowing me away. The 10% less normal damage is good, but when you compare Lion of the North to a skill like YSG's 4th skill, which is just 50% all the time raw skill damage, like this really doesn't really hold a candle. Okay, next up, we have Battle of Sterling Bridge. I can actually pronounce this one as well. Very nice. But when attacking troops on the map, this commander troop deals 10% more smite damage and 10% more normal damage. So this will work when you're in a garrison, and obviously will work when you're on the map, hitting other troops on the map, but will not work if you are hitting a garrison or in a rally situation. So the difference here between normal damage and smite damage: normal damage will increase your normal damage and counterattacks, or I guess normal attacks and counterattacks, as well as your smite damage. And the smite damage will only increase, obviously, your smite damage. So that you're looking at like a 20% increase to your active skill and about a 10% increase to your normal attacks and counterattacks. And lastly, we have our expertise. And this, I'm getting some mixed feelings about as well. We have a Dispel Slow. I will say a Dispel Slow is quite nice, and it says whenever this commander's troops uses an active skill, that means that this is also a proactive skill, not just completely reactive, which obviously I always enjoy. So whenever this troop uses an active skill or is slowed, it dispels all slow effects from up to 3 nearby allied and friendly troops, including this commander's troop, then grant them a damage absorption mighty shield for a damage factor of 1000 for 2 seconds, cooldown 10 seconds. So what do I think about this? I think it's good. 1,000 is a lot, and 1,000 to 2 other targets and this troop is really, really strong. That's a 3,000 total shield. Now, in practice, this has a 10-second cooldown, so you will likely get this, once every 15, 18 seconds, depending on how often you're firing off your active skill and or getting hit. And additionally, this is random. It's not targeted. While it is targeted to your marches, sometimes your marches are kind of falling back in the murder ball and might not actually get the benefit of this because it only lasts for 2 seconds. So this is really a lot stronger when you're connecting to a target for a large amounts of time, maybe sad facing, pushing objectives. So I like the skill. It's strong. It's not like super crazy. The last thing that we have is the brand new talent tree. So this is cool. Smite talent tree. I think that in the future, this commander might be run as a primary in some configurations. I do think that the Smite talent tree in general is very, very strong. Now we have limited commanders available at this time, and we're going to go over pairings later on in the video, but I don't think that he will be used as a primary in his configuration. But regardless, let's go over the bonuses and the Smite tree that has been officially announced. So we have to the bitter end. Every 10 seconds after this commander's troop enters a battle, it gains 2% bonus to all types of Smite damage dealt up to 10%. So this is a slightly worse variation of the same type of talent points that we have in the attack tree. The attack tree reads every 10 seconds after this commander's troop enters battle, it gains 2.5% bonus to all damage up to 10%. So this is slightly worse than that, but still a good skill overall. We have thick skin, which is, not terribly good. It's only 6% less skill damage, mediocre compared to some stuff in the support tree. Like this doesn't really do too much, but that's fine. And then this is the big one. So this is the one everyone's talking about, fight or flight, this number 3 slot right here. We have whenever this commander's troop deals any type of smite damage, all troops hit by that damage lose 45 rage. So obviously everybody thinks Liu Che, 5 target AoE, reducing all of their rage by 45, really strong. You've got instant proc on Liu Che, reducing their rage by 45, pretty strong, right? So things like that can be pretty good. So why wouldn't Liu Che, or why would Liu Che be the primary in that configuration? Well, we're going to go over that later. Anyway, the last one is Thunderous Smite. Whenever this commander's troop deals any type of smite damage, there's a 30% chance that the damage will be increased by 10%. This looks nice. I promise you it's really not that nice. It's 3% damage bonus on average to your smite damage. It's give or take okay. This will be okay. The real ticket item in this one is fight or flight. No matter what, with every Smite commander in the future that can be used as a primary, you're going to want to get this talent tree. Okay, now that we have reviewed the kit, we have reviewed the talent tree, will this commander stand the test of time? Will it be like a long-term investment? Does it check all the boxes for an open field commander? And you could probably tell in the sound of my voice, I'm not too enthusiastic, okay? So what are you looking for when you're looking for an open field commander? You're looking for AoE. This commander has very, very conditional AoE, so I'm just going to answer that question with a no, okay? Does it have March speed? Yeah, it does have March speed, so that's good. We got a plus there. Does it have a debuff? No, it does not have a single debuff on it. So it's not bringing anything that benefits the other marches that I have in my murder ball. Well, that's not entirely true because it does have the shielding, which is important, right? So this is the only group utility that this actually has. What I will say is this commander serves as an amplifier. This is the skill that you're really looking for. And this is why I think that this commander will be okay in this kind of meta. Do I think that it'll work out with Liu Che? Obviously, but that is not because this commander is strong, that is because Liu Che is strong. I think that this commander, realistically, compared to a lot of the releases that we've had recently, is relatively weak. I actually wouldn't even put this in the top 2 infantry commanders currently in the game. It really does not check most of the boxes off that I'm really looking for a strong open field commander. Now, that being said, we're going to actually compare this to another commander that just came out recently that got a ton of hate. And I actually want you guys to really think about this, like which commander is better on its own. So let's actually go hop in game here to the good old classic Belisarius Prime. Okay, you guys know what Belisarius Prime is. This isn't a belly guide, but what I am going to do is keep score about which skill on each commander I think is better. For the active skill, obvious. Belisarius Prime has a stronger active skill. It is a debuff that is applied. It is a net total of a 300 rage manipulation. This is a really strong active skill. Next up, we have the stat skill. I'm going to call this one a wash between the two commanders. The Belisarius Prime gives 30% of stats and 20% march speed, and a conditional 60%, and the WW's active skill, or not active skill, sorry, second skill, gives 40% of stats, 20% march speed, but no conditional march speed. So I'm just going to call that a wash. Next up, we're actually going to compare this skill to the 10% smite and 10% normal attack from the WW's kit. This gives more defense, but less overall all damage, but it also adds an instant proc. These skills, very similar in power level, not super drastically different. I would say that I prefer the Belisarius instant proc, even though it is smaller. And then next up, we have the very similar wording you might have noticed from the other one. You've got that 80% keyword conditional, and then you've got that 10% less skill damage or normal damage, which is on WW's kit. Now, I would say that 30% more skill damage all the time on both commanders is better than an 80% chance to proc on one of the skills with a 10-second cooldown. So I would give this skill also as another +1 to Belisarius Prime. And then for the expertise, this is a slam dunk, obvious. Belisarius Prime has a stronger expertise than WW does. So why was Belisarius Prime hated by the community and WW is somehow this great, fantastic, best commander in the game? Like, it does not make sense to me. I understand that WW is smite damage. I understand that there is more mitigation for skill damage out there. But when you compare the kits of these two commanders, it's really not close. Belisarius Prime as a standalone commander, standalone, we're not talking about pairings and overall, right? But as a standalone commander is actually stronger than WW is. So that being said, why don't we go into the kits of some of the other commanders that it might replace? So it might replace something like a Gorgo. We're talking about pairing with Liu Che, all right? That's on everybody's mind. Well, Gorgo has a stronger active skill, has a really strong second skill, in my opinion, increasing the normal damage that they take, cooldown 8 seconds. This one doesn't do anything on Gorgo, so obviously a +1 there for the WW. And this one is the deals 30% more normal damage for 3 seconds, which would proc on the secondary commander of whatever is paired with Gorgo. So in the recent time, it's been Liu Che, but now I suppose it would be with WW. So you're looking at, obviously very comparable stat lines between the two. I think that in general, will WW probably be a better pairing for Liu Che than Gorgo? Probably, okay, but not by much, And now we're going to go into the commander pairing specifically. So do I think that WW paired with Liu Che or Liu Che with WW is going to be the best commander pair in the game? No, I do not. I think if you are running one infantry march, it is still going to be Skippy with Liu Che, okay? Skippy brings the shielding, he brings the instant proc damage, he brings so much that you need in Rise of Kingdoms. I think that this march just remains undefeated. I'm not going to bench Skippy for a single target, no debuffing commander. It makes absolutely no sense. So for one march with infantry, you're still going to run Skippy with Liu Che. For the 2 marches of infantry, now we get into some micro optimizations. The best of the best will probably be Liu Che primary with WW secondary, and why should Liu Che be the primary? This might seem a little odd, but if we go back into the kits here of WW, we have Lion of the North, and you're going to see on the first active skill that goes off, it has a 80% chance to increase that damage by 40%. What does that mean? You want that Liu Che to benefit from that 40%, not the WW, right? Wallace with his one target is going to get so much less value than Liu Che. So you want that Liu Che active skill firing off first. And now you say, Kane, well, why? Like the Smite talent tree, it's so good. The rage reduction, I understand. I'm telling you that it's not worth it. If we go in here and we go into the talent tree, the attack talent tree is already a little mini Smite tree in general. You have 6% all damage. This is just a flat all damage with no downside down here in Martial Mastery. You have a better version of the same exact skill that I was talking about earlier. This is 2.5 bonus to all damage dealt, which stacks quicker. And then this is another 6% all damage with 3% damage taken downside. Now, this is not 100% guaranteed for sure the way to run it. We will have to see the rest of the talent tree for the Smite commander tree, but in general, I'm thinking Liu Che primary is still going to be the way to go. So back on track, we're going to have Liu Che paired with WW, and we're going to have Guan Yu. Guan Yu still remains, especially with his relic coming out into the game. Guan Yu with Skippy. So that's going to be your 2-march setup. And then lastly, the 3-march setup, we're going to bring back the Alex. We're going to run Liu Che, I believe, with Alex. We're going to run Guan Yu with Skippy, and then we're going to run Gorgo with WW. Now, I'm not super excited about this combination. I think that the lack of AoE is pretty daunting, but I do think it is the best way to go if you are running 3 infantry. What I don't like about the commander itself, WW, is that he doesn't stand on his own, as I've already mentioned. You cannot pair WW with somebody like Skippy. You cannot pair WW with somebody like Alex. I mean, you can. It will probably do fine with Skippy, but you're not really going to love replacing your Guan for WW in the Guan Skippy combo and running Liu Che Alex. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I think that in general, he's but he is completely reliant on Liu Che to bring that powerhouse factor. And I think that, pairing him with Gorgo as well could work, but it's not quite as strong. So that leads me into my final point. And what is the rationale behind investing into WW should you do it? I have just told you that in the 2-march murder ball, he is probably going to replace your Alex or your Gorgo in that 2-march setup. But I don't think that this commander is a must invest. I don't think he's a must invest at all. I don't think in Rise of Kingdoms, the march for infantry that needed help was the one with Liu Che. Liu Che Alex is really, really strong. Liu Che with Gorgo, or pardon me, but Gorgo with Liu Che is really, really strong. These commanders paired together were doing way, way better than all of my marches on the field. And the truth is that replacing Gorgo or replacing Alex to put in a WW is not going to do much. I don't think WW is a super strong and safe investment in the future. No debuff, no AoE. And I also think that realistically, you're going to have this Guan relic that's coming out. You just had the double relic for Alex that came out, and I think that this commander in general really is not going to be miles and miles ahead of either Gorgo or Alex to pair it with your Liu Che. So I lied when I said that that was actually the last thing I was going to do, but I've got one more, and I'm actually going to rank the top 4 infantry commanders as they stand right now as standalone marches and in the combinations with the other marches that exist in the game. So we're going to go ahead and start with number 1. The unchallenged king is still Liu Che. This is a no-brainer. He is the best commander in the game, maybe only rivaled by Zhuge Liang and Herman, but the rage engine on him and the 5 target AoE smite damage is just unmatched, so he remains at number 1. Number 2, we have Skippy Prime. He also does not get dethroned. I still think he is a better commander than people give him credit for. He has AoE, he has a debuff, he has shielding, and he has instant proc damage, and he has march speed. I literally do not know of a better open field kit than his. If his kit was smite damage and 5 target AoE with Liu Che's expertise, I mean, it would quite literally be the perfect commander in the game. Obviously, there's a reason why they can't do that, but that is still why Skippy Prime remains as the 2nd best infantry commander in the game. Now, the 3rd best infantry commander in the game is also Liu Che, but with all these 3 commanders in his backpack. So this gets a little awkward, and this is kind of why I'm telling you that these investments are all relatively similar. Now, we've got WW coming in at first place in that backpack. He's standing out on the edge. He's ready to get out of the backpack, but he is still reliant on Liu Che to be as good as he is, and that goes for Alex and Gorgo, who are also in the backpack of Liu Che. Without Liu Che, these 2 commanders, Alex and Gorgo, would not be relevant in the open field, but because Liu Che is so strong and they have so much synergy with these other 2 commanders, they kind of pop in at that number 3 as well, but your general number 3 best commander will still be WW to best pair with your Liu Che. And then lastly, we have number 4, the good old Guan Yu. He remains. Everybody thought that he would be gone in this imp cycle. Turns out he's getting a relic. Turns out he is still the 4th best commander for infantry in the game. And here we are. There you have your top 4 kind of best infantry commanders in the game. Alright guys, that wraps up the video. That wraps up my first impressions. I know that maybe I'm not coming off as excited as a lot of the other people are in the community. And look, I'm an Inf main, okay? I'm an Inf rally and garrison. Like, look at this set of gear. I mean, look, I'm all for Inf being strong, but I will say that this commander really doesn't deserve the hype, in my opinion, that it's getting on the internet right now. I do think that it'll be a commander that is worked into the meta, but I do also think it will be worked out of the meta relatively shortly afterwards. So again, please leave a comment down below, like if you did enjoy the content. But that being said, guys, I'm gonna head off for the night. I hope you guys have a good morning, evening, afternoon, good night, and take care. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.